What's up, guys? It's your boys Wokey back out with some more of the Chris Watts videos, and of course we are continuing on Watts Island as usual. But a lot of you guys have mentioned that I need to watch this video, and I'm happy to oblige. It says new evidence, but we know how new evidence is shown in Chris Watts videos. It's very hard to find some new stuff. It's there, here and there, but this is Chris Watts, Nicole Kessinger planned and helped me do it. I'm guessing the murders. She was involved. So I'm intrigued, and hopefully you guys are too. So for those that would like to watch this with me, make sure you guys are getting ready to sit down, get comfortable. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting that white bar icon down at the bottom right. Hit the bell icon next to it, so when I do post videos like this one, you guys will get that little ring notification that I've posted that video, and then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And again, I thank you guys so much for the love and support. Hopefully one day we'll get to 100K. But until that time, links will be down in the description if you guys do not want to watch my commentary, my reaction towards this video. And the channel that we're watching is Secret in the Dark, a new YouTube channel that I've never seen, but you guys have sent it to me. They are close to 1,000 subscribers, so go give them some love. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. It looks like they have other videos on there as well. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Disclaimer, of course.
She never asked for this. Or maybe she did.
Oh, she did.
Maybe she was just another chapter in a twisted story, another secret kept in the shadows. A woman caught in the undertow of a man's lies, or perhaps, complicit in a web she helped weave.
Ooh.
He promised her a future, a life built on stolen moments, all while wearing a mask of devotion to another. But as the truth slowly unravels, she finds herself in a place where the lines between victim and accomplice blur, and the consequences of her choices become as unpredictable as the man who whispered sweet lies into her ear. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, is how deeply entangled she was in the darkness that surrounded him. Watch as the
But I think she created that darkness as well.
The mystery unfolds, revealing a web of secrets, a tangled affair, and a truth that no one was prepared for. In this story, no one's innocence is guaranteed. Not even hers. In
That
August
one's good right there.
2018, the quiet town of Frederick, Colorado, was thrown into chaos. Shannon Watts, 15 weeks pregnant, and her 2 young daughters, Bella and Celeste, vanished without a trace. The family had been the picture of suburban bliss, or so it appeared. Chris Watts, the man who had promised to love and protect them, stood in front of cameras with a sorrowful face.
That's the thing that bothers me the most, is this man came before God. I'm a God believer. Okay? I believe in it. I believe in the man upstairs. And when you do a commitment in front of him that you will love, cherish through thick and thin, through worse, through bad, you will stay with your wife and you will try to make things work. You will protect your children and stuff like that. I mean, I am at wrong for myself for filing for divorce with my ex-wife, but I felt that there was abuse, and I felt mentally, physically, which I had to leave. I couldn't do it no more. I feel that Chris was in the same boat mentally with himself. He thought he was forgotten. He didn't talk to Shanann. That's the problem, is he didn't talk to her. Yeah, okay, she might have been immersed in with her phone and her job and so forth like that, but he didn't really man up and fight for his marriage. He fought his feelings with another woman that shared all the same interests, that cared about him when he thought that Shanann was not doing it anymore. She was being a mother. She was being a business owner. She might have not shown what she should have, which I don't know fully, but that still doesn't constitute the rightful or his mind thinking the right thing to do was murder. That's not. So I don't feel sorry for this man. I don't feel any, how I want to say this to make sure I'm going with YouTube guidelines. The man is a D word. The man is all the above words. And I still can't believe that there are people that defend this man still to this day and say, oh, it's because Shanann was too much. Shanann was, didn't love him. Shanann was like, I don't understand it.
Pleading for their safe return. But behind his...
And the whole reason why I was getting into it is this man went before God and said, I will do everything in my power to protect, love, and care for my wife and my children. And he pretty much went like this. Oh, I don't want to rip that up. He went. Nope. I'm finding all of this board stuff. Okay, this stuff. He pretty much was like. It's pretty much what he did. He didn't care.
Tears, there was something he wasn't saying.
Nicole was with me.
Far darker than anyone could imagine. As the search for Shanann and the girls intensified, the walls began to close in, and the truth was slowly, but inevitably, about to emerge. What Chris didn't know was that the very affair he had fought to keep secret, the life he was desperately trying to escape, was about to come crashing down. Chris Watts, a father and husband to Shanann, seemed like an everyday man. He worked as an operator at an oil refinery, a job that kept him busy, but not enough to distract from the cracks in his marriage. To the outside world, he was an ideal family man, someone who had it all, a beautiful wife, 2 daughters, and a home in a quiet neighborhood. But behind closed doors, things were anything but perfect. Shanann had been struggling with her health, her pregnancy, and the mounting strain in her marriage. Chris had become distant, withdrawn, and someone with a secret life. Chris Watts had everything anyone could want, a family, a stable job, a life many would envy.
Toya.
But deep inside, something was gnawing at him. His marriage to Shanann had begun to fray at the edges. He had already been carrying the weight of it.
But because of his own wrongdoing. It's not that Shanann was doing it. It's like, I still think, you know how those parents or those family guys or family women that they're in a car accident, they're the only ones that are left alive, and the whole family, unfortunately, is deceased because of an accident that maybe the next car caused. And now they're reaping over their family being gone and so forth. And that's how Chris is acting. Is he's like, oh, my family, I don't know where they went. I'm so struck. I'm and he's trying to be the victim in this case, as if his family was taken or murdered by somebody else than Chris. And that's what it just bugs me, is that people are like, oh, Chris was a victim too. And no, he wasn't.
A secret, one he thought he could hide forever. He had found someone else, a woman who seemed to offer him everything his wife could not. But that wasn't the full story. Chris's double life was a powder keg, ready to explode. His affair with Nicole Kessinger was just the beginning, and the pressure to keep everything hidden would soon push him to a breaking point. Nicole Kessinger, a name that would soon be etched into this tragedy's timeline.
Oh, yes.
Nicole believed she had found love in Chris, a man who promised her he was on the brink of fixing his broken marriage. She had no idea, according to her, the depths of the lies he had spun, or the tragedy that was looming just beyond the horizon.
That she caused.
As their relationship deepened, so did the tension in Chris's life, with Shanann beginning to suspect that her husband wasn't as committed to their family as she had once believed. The affair was more than just an escape for Chris, it was his secret weapon, a way out of a marriage he no longer wanted, even if it meant tearing apart everything he had built. But the question today is, how much did Nicole Kessinger know?
Ooh,
and where
a lot.
did she stand in this web of deception? There isn't much information about Nicole Kessinger's childhood, as she has always maintained a low profile.
This girl knew about insurance policies. She knew where the kids went to school, how much the schools cost. She knew a lot more than she was leading to investigators.
However, Nicole grew up in Colorado and later attended Colorado State University, where she earned a degree in geology. She also studied at Community College of Aurora, where she specialized in environmental studies. Very little is known about her family, but reports suggest she had a relatively normal upbringing. There's no known history of legal trouble or controversy before her involvement with Chris Watts.
That's not true. There is evidence that shows that Nicole Kessinger was involved in DUIs, involved in the D word, DRUG. She was involved in a stabbing. But all of this went away. She was never actually charged with things, which is very suspicious in itself.
After finishing school, she worked in the oil and gas industry, which is how she eventually ended up at Anadarko Petroleum, where she met Watts. Nicole Kessinger and Chris Watts met in June 2018 while working at Anadarko Petroleum in
I think it's sooner.
Colorado. At the time, Nicole worked as an environmental health and safety officer in the office, while Watts was a field operator. According to Nicole, she noticed Watts was always coming into her office occasionally and he wasn't wearing a wedding ring and presented himself as soft-spoken and kind.
Because apparently he took off the wedding ring because with him losing weight, it kept falling off.
In late June 2018, according to Nicole, Watts claimed that he and his wife, Shannon Watts, were going through a separation and in the process of divorcing.
The only people that knew about this separation or divorcing was the Watts family. Nicole knew that Chris wanted out of the marriage. Chris was apparently separating from Shanann, but nothing was in hard stone. Nothing was online. Everything online seemed to be peachy and normal. So where did she get her facts from unless she sat there and believed Chris the entire time, which I don't think it was.
This was because they were no longer in love. He also did tell her that his wife and kids had already moved out of their home and that they were figuring out the final details of their separation.
No.
He made it seem like he was emotionally available and ready to start a new relationship. Nicole said that she believed him because he wasn't wearing a wedding ring and never gave her a reason to doubt his story.
But yet she Googled him multiple times. And Shanann.
She also claimed that he never spoke negatively about Shanann but made it seem like their marriage was already ending. Their casual work conversation.
He sat there and told her that he can't have a voice. He can't put anything on the walls without her complaining. I don't believe that for a second.
Turned flirty, and by early July 2018, they started seeing each other outside of work.
The whole Watts family was talking negative about Shanann.
Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger's first official date happened in early July 2018 after weeks of talking at work.
I think it was sooner.
Watts took Nicole to a car museum, likely the Shelby American Collection in Colorado, known for classic cars. After the museum, they had lunch together, and their connection grew stronger. By mid-July, Watts and Nicole met frequently, going on dates, spending nights together, and even going to the sand dunes for a romantic trip in late July.
Don't forget with her Googling butt stuff, or preparing for it, and threesomes.
Watts also reportedly introduced her to his gym and told her he was serious about their future together. Nicole said that Watts was affectionate and that they continued talking daily after that. And for Chris, it was a lifeline. He had been suffocating under the weight of his marriage, the constant pressure of being someone he wasn't. Nicole, with her open ears and understanding smile, became the person he confided in, the person he believed could save him. According to Nicole, Chris wasn't just looking for a way out of his marriage, he was looking for something more, something that could give him the freedom he craved. And for Nicole, it was the promise of a new beginning. To her, Chris's tales of unhappiness seemed genuine, his struggles with Shannon felt real. She believed he was trapped in a toxic marriage, a man slowly losing himself to a life he no longer wanted.
That's his fault.
Chris painted Shannon as a controlling figure, someone who dictated every part of his life, from their finances to their daily routines. He blamed her for the financial mess they were in, the deep debt that had begun to consume their lives. Their bankruptcy filing in 2015 had been the breaking point, or so he claimed. He told Nicole that Shannon's spending habits were out of control, that she was obsessed with keeping up appearances, regardless of the financial consequences. Chris felt suffocated by the mounting pressure, by a woman who, according to him, demanded perfection in every aspect of their life. In Nicole, he found solace. In her, he found someone who would listen without judgment.
But that doesn't give you the right to commit murder.
But in all this, Nicole Kessinger stated in her police interviews that Chris Watts was never hostile when talking about his wife, Shannon, or their kids. Nicole said that when Watts talked about Shannon, he never expressed anger or hatred toward her. Instead, he framed their relationship as loveless and coming to an end. He never called Shannon names or said anything aggressively negative, he just made it seem like they had grown apart. He described their relationship as distant, claiming they had little communication and were sleeping in with coworkers or others in social settings. He didn't open up easily to people and kept his personal life private. Chris told her that one of the reasons he enjoyed talking to her was because he could get out of his shell and be more himself when they were together. This part of their relationship seemed to strengthen their bond, as Nicole felt that she was able to bring a side of Chris to the surface that others didn't see.
Then it's called breakup or divorce, not murder.
But Shannon wasn't the villain in this story, at least,
She was
not in the way Chris had made her out to be. She was a mother, a wife, and a woman trying to hold her family together, despite the struggles they faced. Yes, she had spent money, but like so many others, it was in the hopes of building a better life.
Exactly.
Her ambition had driven her to work hard, too hard, perhaps, to the point where the...
And that's what I like about Shannon, is she was so driven to be the best. You don't have to be the best, but she was driven to give her kids the best of the best, to do the best for Chris. I mean, she took Chris to his favorite band concert, Metallica. That's huge. That's expensive. But I didn't see Nicole doing that. Nicole didn't spend any money on Chris. It was Chris that was spending all the money on their dates. And probably some disgusting toys.
Cracks in her marriage began to show. As Chris's bond with Nicole deepened, so did the tension in his life. Every conversation with Shannon became a reminder of the prison he had built for himself.
And now look at the prison he built for himself. 5x6 walls.
Interactions with Nicole, on the other hand, were filled with excitement, with the possibility of a future free from the suffocating expectations of his marriage. Nichol Kessinger did visit Chris Watts' house on 2 occasions, but those visits were brief and not under normal circumstances. Nicole mentioned that her first visit to Chris's home occurred in July 2018.
And then
However, this visit was
16th,
brief, and she didn't
14th.
interact with his family. Signs of Shannon at that point, and Watts gave the impression that his marriage was ending. On her second visit, Nichol Kessinger mentioned that she saw a picture of Shannon Watts and their children for the first time. She described being taken aback when she saw the photo of Shannon, Bella, and Celeste together.
Because she knew that she was always going to be second best. She was never going to be the best, the woman. She was the second woman, and that pissed her off.
She noted that it was a happy family photo, and she could see how beautiful they all were. According to her, she talked to herself in the moment, thinking something along the lines of, "Wow, this man has a beautiful wife, beautiful kids, and a beautiful home.
I don't believe this.
Why would he want to give that up for me?" She expressed confusion about why Chris Watts, who appeared to have such a loving family, would want to leave them behind for a new relationship with her.
Because you were giving the man butt stuff, booty, cars, yabos. I mean, you were giving him your body is what he wanted. And she enjoyed it because she told her friend, Charlotte, it's the best she's ever had.
Nicole Kessinger revealed that she had expressed her concerns to Chris Watts about the state of his marriage, especially after seeing the picture of his family. She felt conflicted and, at one point, questioned his intentions. Nicole told Chris that instead of getting divorced or separating, he should try harder to work things out with his wife, Shanann. She suggested that, given how beautiful his family appeared, perhaps he should reconsider his plans to end the marriage and work on fixing things. Chris Watts responded by saying that he and Shanann had been trying to work things out, but their efforts just weren't working.
They were working on it?
He claimed that their relationship had been distant for some time, and they were both emotionally disconnected. After this conversation, Nicole felt guilty.
Because you could hear in all the different text messages and calls that we've heard and seen that pretty much in the beginning, Shanann was trying to like get his attention. Like, hey, I'm over here. Oh, we're at the doctor's appointment. He didn't touch me. Doesn't hold my hand. Wasn't wanting to do anything with the child that he wanted, and Shanann just tried very hard, and he was just completely out of it because of this woman.
She said she started to feel like she was the one trying to break up a happy home, even though she believed that Chris was unhappy and had told her that he and Shanann had already been in a difficult place. She felt torn, as she didn't want to be the cause of any disruption in a family but also felt drawn to Chris and believed their relationship was genuine.
She didn't care.
After Nicole Kessinger spoke to Chris Watts about the idea of trying to work things out with his wife, Chris told her that he was planning to go to North Carolina to meet with Shanann. He mentioned that once he got there, he was going to talk to Shanann and try to see if they could reconnect and rebuild their relationship. According to her, she believed that Chris was truly trying to fix his marriage and that his trip to North Carolina was part of his effort to see if he...
But yet she was sending him naked photos, Googling wedding dresses. He was also looking up places to rendezvous with her when he got rid of Shanann. So I beg to differ.
He and Shanann could work things out. She felt that by encouraging him to give his marriage one last try, she wasn't interfering, as she believed he was just figuring things out.
And it would make her look better. Yeah, it didn't work.
According to Nicole's account, Chris told her that after talking to Shanann, he would see where things stood and determine if they could get back to what they had before. Chris portrayed this as a last attempt to see if they could rekindle their relationship, and he reassured Nicole that he was emotionally disconnected from Shanann at that point but was still willing to try. Nicole expressed that she didn't want to interfere with Chris' efforts to work things out with Shanann, and she gave him the space he needed to see if a reconciliation was possible. In the days following his outing with Nicole, Chris left for North Carolina to attempt to salvage his marriage. It was a move that seemed driven by desperation, his last attempt to piece together...
The reason why he went out there was so he could see his family. He didn't care about his family that he created. He cared about his mommy and daddy and his sister and his grandma and pretty much that.
Together the shattered fragments of his crumbling life. But when he returned, something had changed. There was a darkness in his eyes that hadn't been there before, a hollow emptiness that seemed to consume him. The man who had once charmed Nicole with promises of a new life, of a future, had disappeared. What stood in his place was something far more dangerous. And in the days that followed, the world would be forced to reckon with the truth of who Chris Watts truly was. Despite her discomfort with the situation, she believed that Chris was being honest with her, and that his relationship with Shanann had genuinely broken down. During their conversations about the divorce, Nicole Kessinger recalled asking Chris Watts what would happen to his children, Bella and Celeste, once the divorce was finalized. She mentioned that Chris seemed to indicate they were still discussing it, but he had expressed an interest in a 50-50 custody arrangement. He seemed to believe that a shared custody arrangement would be the best for the children, and he talked about how he would want to be involved in their lives, which seemed consistent with the image he painted of himself as a dedicated father.
So he murders?
Chris Watts told Nicole Kessinger that he and Shanann were planning to sell their house due to the divorce and also to solve their money issue.
But if you saw the house that they were possibly looking at, it was pretty much the same exact house, just on a cheaper plot.
He mentioned this as part of the overall narrative he was constructing about the separation and how he was moving forward with his life. This was part of his explanation that he and Shanann were separating and that his life was changing, as they were no longer going to stay in the same home. He also painted the idea that the sale of the house would be part of him moving on from his marriage and starting fresh, which likely aligned with the narrative he was giving Nicole about his separation and future plans. Nicole did not seem to question the story about the house, as she believed that Chris was genuinely in the process of divorcing Shanann and making changes to his life.
There was no process.
Nicole Kessinger mentioned that when she visited Chris Watts' house, she noticed several things that seemed expensive, which led her to believe that the family was doing well financially, despite the claims of financial difficulties that Chris had shared with her. She mentioned that when she visited the house, it was clear that the home and the car Chris drove were high-end and expensive. The furnishings and the overall appearance of the house gave the impression of financial comfort, which seemed at odds with Chris's claim that they were struggling financially. This left her somewhat confused because, based on the lavishness of their possessions,
well, they were able to keep up with it for at least 4 to 5 years, because they were there, 2014 that they built this house? I might be wrong again, but
it didn't add up with the narrative Chris had presented about their financial troubles. She had an idea, but she didn't know the exact salary, but given the fact that he worked in the oil and gas industry, and she knew that his income was significant, and she knew Shanann worked as a...
Together they roughly made over $100,000. Well within the means of affording that house.
Sales representative, but did not have any clear understanding of how much she earned. Nicole admitted that she couldn't pick up on the specifics of Shanann's earnings or how much she contributed to the household finances. This lack of clarity about Shanann's income likely contributed to Nichol's overall confusion about the family's financial situation. Despite Chris's claims of financial struggles, the visible signs of wealth at their home made it hard for Nicole to reconcile his statements with the reality of their lifestyle. Nicole Kessinger did mention that even though Shanann's income from her job as a sales representative was likely around $100,000 per year, the Watts family was still living way above their means. Despite Shanann's substantial income, the lifestyle they were living seemed to be far beyond what was sustainable based on their actual earnings.
She knew way too much.
Habits and the luxuries in their life didn't match the reality of their income. This inconsistency made her question the financial narrative Chris had been presenting to her. She thought that even with a 6-figure income, they were clearly living in a way that suggested they were deeply in debt or overextending themselves to maintain appearances. Nicole Kessinger mentioned in her interview that Chris told her about the frustration he felt with his finances, particularly regarding how his money would go into his bank account but quickly disappear due to expenses, with
That's what happens when you're a family man. You take care of your family.
Without him being able to save or manage it properly. He described watching his bank account balance disappear as frustrating, and he mentioned that it wasn't supposed to be that way. He seemed to frame this lack of control over his finances as one of the reasons he felt stressed and unhappy.
Sounds like a hip problem.
Nicole believed that Chris's financial frustrations were one of the reasons for the divorce, along with other issues he had described regarding his relationship with Shanann. She thought that the stress over money, combined with his sense of being overwhelmed, might have pushed him to the point where he felt the need to end his marriage. Nicole Kessinger mentioned that Chris Watts seemed to be resentful about the financial situation in his marriage. When the police asked if he was resentful of Shanann's spending habits, Nicole acknowledged that while she couldn't be certain of Chris's exact feelings, she did understand that he felt resentful of Shanann's spending. Chris had expressed frustration and resentment toward Shanann because he believed she had money problems and didn't know how to control her spending. He felt that she was responsible for the financial strain in their marriage because of her spending habits. While Nicole couldn't definitively say that Chris was
still not a reason for murder.
Resentful in the exact way she understood it, she did believe that Chris's frustration about their financial situation was connected to Shannon's spending decisions, which in his view, were contributing to their money troubles. Chris seemed to feel that Shannon was reckless with money and that she didn't manage their finances well, which added to the pressure he was already feeling. He seemed to feel a sense of burden from her spending, which Nicole believed was likely a significant part of the stress in their marriage. Chris had promised Nicole a future, a new beginning, but in reality, he had already made his choice.
Butt
And
stuff.
as his
Oh,
affair
sorry.
with Nicole. But he couldn't let go of the family he had built, not just for his own sake, but for his daughters, Bella and Celeste. And so, he did the unthinkable.
He murders them.
He plotted a future with Nicole in mind, all while preparing to destroy everything he had built with Shannon, one devastating step at a time.
It makes no sense.
In the end, it wasn't about love or loyalty, it was
Lust.
about something far darker. Chris Watts wasn't just seeking an escape from his marriage. He was seeking control over his life, over his future. And for Nicole Kessinger, she would soon realize that the man she had fallen for was someone capable of far more than
He pretty much did a curl-alt-delete with his family.
she could have ever imagined. Chris Watts, despite the growing weight of his double life, still believed that he could somehow make it all work. Nicole Kessinger, the woman who had become his confidant, his escape, asked him, point blank, how he felt about her. He didn't hesitate. "I love you," he said. The words hung in the air, but they weren't just a declaration of love. They were a confession of the escape he had so desperately sought, the life he believed would free him from the suffocating chains of his marriage. He told
Things so
Nicole that
bad.
with her, he felt unburdened, able to express himself in ways he couldn't with his wife. But even in the depths of his confession, Chris was still tied to the life he had built, and the reality of that life was starting to unravel. As the days wore on, Chris's behavior became more unpredictable. The cracks in his carefully crafted facade were beginning to show. Nicole, ever observant, noticed the stress taking its toll on him. He was losing weight, his face drawn with exhaustion. She could see the strain in his eyes.
He was losing weight because he was working out. He wasn't sleeping because he was taking the Thrive stuff, and he was just like an Energizer bunny.
He couldn't hide it anymore. The weight of his actions, the deception he had woven for months, was starting to eat away at him. His double life was suffocating him, and yet, there was no turning back.
He caused.
On Saturday, August 11th, just days before the murders, Chris and Nicole spent the day together. They went to the Lazy Dog, a restaurant that would forever be tied to the memories of that weekend. Over casual bites of food, the reality of Chris's situation started to bleed through. Nicole noticed his weight loss, his lack of energy. He seemed stressed.
Lack of energy. She said she would have to take naps for him because she couldn't keep up with him.
His mind clearly occupied with something far heavier than just their relationship. Attributed it to his strained marriage and the financial struggles that had plagued him for years. But Nicole couldn't ignore the obvious, there was something more going on beneath the surface. That Saturday, Chris told Nicole what she wanted to hear. He promised her a future, a life together, away from the chaos he had created. But his words were hollow, their meaning slipping further away with each passing day. Nicole had no idea how close they were to the breaking point. In her mind, Chris was still a man who could be saved, still a man capable of redemption.
Until he did
But
what he
in the
did.
days that followed, the lies he had woven for so long were beginning to unravel. As Chris's double life continued to unfold, so did the web of lies he had carefully constructed. Every conversation with Nicole, every interaction with Shannon, became more laden with tension, each moment pushing him closer to a point of no return.
Oh, he
But
definitely
it was
went
in
no
the quiet
return.
moments, the moments when Chris thought no one was watching, that the darkness within him began to take shape. What Chris didn't know was that his escape, the new life he dreamed of with Nichol, was slipping further and further away with every lie, every secret he kept. And on the morning of August 13, 2018, the tipping point would come. There would be no more words to soothe the storm he had created, no more promises to make it right. The final act was about to unfold. And then, the moment that would change everything came. During a tense police interrogation, Chris Watts finally admitted to the unimaginable. The brutal murder of his wife, Sean-Ann, and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste, had not been a crime of passion. It wasn't the result of some uncontrollable rage. No, it was something far colder, more calculated. Chris admitted that he had strangled Sean-Ann in their bedroom. But that wasn't the end. His daughters, Bella's promised to protect his family, who had vowed to care for them, so callously take their lives. How could he look into the eyes of his two innocent daughters, who loved him unconditionally, and end it all?
Right?
The answers would never come. The depth of his betrayal was unfathomable. The woman who had loved him, who had built a future with him, was gone, her life snuffed out by the man who had sworn to love her until the end. And the children, who had brought so much joy into the world, were now just memories, forever lost. The confession would be broadcast around the world, a revelation that left everyone in disbelief. How could Chris Watts, the man who had once been the epitome of the loving father and husband, commit such an unthinkable act?
Lust.
But even as the truth came to light, another person's story was just beginning to unravel, the woman who had unknowingly been part of his twisted plot. Nicole Kessinger, who had been so deeply involved with Chris, who had believed his lies, was now faced with the devastating truth. The man she had loved, the man she had envisioned a future with, had betrayed her in the most horrifying way possible. She had unknowingly played a part in something far darker than she had ever imagined.
She knew.
And as she watched Chris's confession unfold on the screen, she could no longer deny the reality of it. The life she had hoped for, the escape from the chaos she thought was Chris's marriage, was nothing more than a mirage.
There are women that enjoy doing things like this, being a mistress, running around, being secretive. They get off of it, or get off on it.
And the truth, once hidden in the shadows, was now laid bare. In an emotional interview, Nicole broke down in tears, her heart heavy with disgust and disbelief. She described how Chris had manipulated her, kept her in the dark about his true intentions, about the darkness that had always lurked just beneath the surface. She had been a willing participant in his web of lies, but now, in the cold light of truth, she saw the depth of her mistake. She had been part of something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. In her interviews, Nicole Kessinger mentioned that she found out Sean-Ann Watts was pregnant through news reports or documents that came out after the murders.
She knew sooner.
This revelation was a shock to her, as she had no idea that Sean-Ann was expecting another child. She admitted that, looking back, she felt a growing sense
So of all the things that Chris was mentioning to her, that's the one that skipped his mind?
of unease because if he could deceive her in such a fundamental way, there was no telling what else he might have been hiding, particularly
He deceived Shanann.
regarding the state of his family and his true intentions. Nicole became more and more disturbed by the situation as she realized how deep the deception ran. She began to feel that the family was in danger due to the lies Chris had told her about the separation and his relationship with Sean-Ann. This realization also led her to reflect on her role in all of this, feeling guilty and disgusted by her involvement with him. When it came to the deleted messages on her phone, Nicole explained that she felt grossed out by some of the things she had said to Chris, particularly as she started to understand just how much he had deceived her. She admitted that she deleted the messages because of how disgusted she felt about her own involvement with him. She also said that, in hindsight,
Who believes that? If there is anybody watching this that believes that she erased the messages because she was disgusted, raise your hands in the comments, because I want to know why you think that.
she didn't want to keep any reminders of the relationship, especially given what had ultimately happened with Chris and his family.
She wanted to separate herself from the case, from the murders, from Chris, so that her life was not entangled in this mess.
She described the feeling of being duped and how it made her feel like she had been used in a situation that was much darker and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Nicole's reflections in the aftermath of the murders show a deep sense of betrayal and disillusionment, as she realized that she had been manipulated by Chris Watts while he was still living with Sean and lying about the true state of his marriage.
I don't believe that.
Chris Watts's confession shook the world to its core, but for Nicole Kessinger, the aftermath would be even more devastating. She would be forced to reckon with the truth of her involvement in a crime that would forever change her life. She had been manipulated, yes, but she had also been complicit. And that truth would haunt her for the rest of her days. Chris Watts was arrested just days after his chilling confession. The world was left in shock and disbelief, trying to...
Technically, Chris was caught with his pants down, and he got in trouble, whatever have you. Nicole was almost caught with her pants down, midway, and then she pulled him up quick. It's kind of like an analogy that, oh, no, I wasn't doing... Whoop. That's literally how I can think about it, is the analogy is Chris got caught with his pants down, Nicole was mid pants down, and then back up. That's pretty much what happened, is what I feel.
Someone who appeared to have it all, the perfect family, a stable job, and a seemingly normal life, could commit such unspeakable acts. The man who had vowed to protect his family had instead destroyed it, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. And yet, despite the horror of his actions, there remained a lingering question: how did it all go so terribly wrong? Was it just an affair gone awry, or was there something deeper, something more insidious at play? On November 19, 2018, Chris Watts was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case had captured the attention of the world, with people struggling to understand how a man could take the lives of his wife and children in cold blood, all for an affair. But while Chris's story came to a grim conclusion, the aftermath of the tragedy would linger for far longer. Narration: Shannon Watts was remembered as a devoted mother, a loving wife, and a hard-working woman who had built a life for her children. Her family, her friends, and the community she left behind were left in shock, grappling with the enormity of the loss. The world mourned her and her daughters, Bella and Celeste, who were taken far too soon. But as the details of the case became public, another story began to unfold, the story of Nicole Kessinger. Nicole Kessinger, who had...
I wish somebody would make like a big like wig kind of company, whatever, that makes like these Netflix documentaries, whatever, and the title would be like Nicole or Chris Watts' story may be over, but the Nicole Kessinger story is just beginning. Like that, like the documentary of Nicole Kessinger, like that would be huge to watch.
Once believed she was starting a new chapter with Chris, was now thrust into the public eye in the most tragic way possible. Her name was forever tied to the murders of Sean and her daughters.
It will always be.
She tried to live a quiet life after the tragedy, but no matter how much time passed, she could never escape the haunting reality of what had unfolded. In the aftermath of the murders, Nicole spoke publicly for the first time, expressing her shock and disbelief at the depth of Chris's betrayal. She described how she had been manipulated by him, how she had believed his lies, and how, in her mind...
And then yet she's wearing the necklace that he gave her.
She had thought she was helping him escape a toxic marriage. But as the truth came to light, she realized the full extent of Chris's deceit. She had been an unwitting accomplice, someone who had been used to help Chris escape his responsibilities, but in the process, she had unknowingly been a part of his twisted plot. She wasn't directly responsible for the murders, but her involvement in Chris's life and the lies he told her could not be ignored. Since the murders, Nicole has tried to rebuild her life. She has stayed out of the public eye, avoiding interviews and media attention. But the questions surrounding her involvement in the case,
"You can't hide forever, Nicole,"
have never fully dissipated. Was she a victim of Chris's manipulation, or was she a willing participant in the unraveling of the Watts family?
Yes.
And could she have done more to prevent the tragedy?
No.
Chris Watts hinted that Nicole Kessinger knew more than she admitted.
Oh, she did.
Some of these suspicions come from his own statements, inconsistencies in her behavior, and the way she reacted after the murders. Here are a few key points that fueled speculation. Chris Watts' alleged hints. Prison confession, 2019. In a follow-up interview from prison, Watts claimed that Nicole wanted to help him get rid of his family so they could be together. However, he didn't explicitly say she had direct involvement. 2. Watts' letter to Sherilyn Cadle. In letters to author Sherilyn Cadle, Watts allegedly suggested that Nicole was more aware of his actions than she let on. However, given Watts' history of manipulation and lying, it's hard to know if this was truthful or just another attempt at shifting blame. 3. Nicole's Google searches. She reportedly searched for things like marrying your mistress and looked up famous criminals like Scott Peterson before the murders. Some found it suspicious, though she claimed she was just curious. 4. Deleted text messages.
Curiosity killed the cat.
And phone activity. Nicole admitted to deleting messages between her and Watts before turning her phone over to the police. Some believe this suggests she was hiding something.
Oh, she's hiding.
Why some believe she knew more. Watts' inconsistent stories. Since Chris Watts has changed his version of events multiple times, some people think he's covering for Nicole. Her abrupt disappearance. After the case became public, Nicole went into hiding, changed her name, and vanished. Some see this as a guilty conscience rather than a need for privacy. Behavior in police interviews. While she cooperated, people have pointed out that she seemed overly concerned with how she looked in the media and sometimes acted oddly in her interviews.
She didn't want her name tainted.
The other side, why she may not have known. She did turn over her phone and cooperated with authorities. Investigators never found direct evidence linking her to the crime.
Because they never looked into it!
It's possible that she was manipulated by Watts, who was skilled at deception.
No.
Ultimately, while there are suspicious details, there's no concrete proof that Nicole Kessinger had prior knowledge or involvement in the murders.
Because they didn't continue with the case.
It remains one of the lingering debates in the case.
And it always will.
Nicole Kessinger, the aftermath of the murders will never be simple. Her name will forever be linked to one of the most horrific family tragedies in recent history. She will never escape the shadow of Chris Watts, and she will always be forced to ask herself the same question: could she have done more to stop him?
No.
Could she have seen the darkness within him before it was too late?
She loved it.
And so, the story of Chris Watts, Sean and Watts, Bella, and Celeste comes to a close. But the echoes of that fateful night continue to reverberate through the lives of those left behind. The Watts family's story is a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect lives. And for Nicole Kessinger, the journey to find peace, if that's even possible, remains ongoing, a path she will walk for the rest of her life, haunted by the ghost of what could have been. Now that you've heard the shocking truth, what do you think? Was Nicole Kessinger just an innocent woman caught up in a deadly affair, or did she play a bigger role than we thought?
Second one.
What do you believe really led Chris Watts to murder his family?
His mom, Nicole Kessinger being the way she is, and Shanann being a little overbearing on him. I'm not blaming Shanann. But he's the one that didn't take it upon himself to tell Shanann that you might be too much, or she's not letting him spread his wings, or he didn't go and confront her and ask for this. He just let it go. And there's more to it. There's Chris Watts' sister, Chris Watts' dad. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, with that being said, I don't think there was anything like new in here. There were some differences that I didn't agree with. There's people that don't agree with me. I understand, but that's why we all have opinions. But definitely let me know your guys' thoughts, your opinions down below in the comments. I definitely will get to the ones that I can. There's hundreds, if not thousands of them that I try to go through every single day. Again, I thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go over to Secret in the Dark. Go give him some love. And with that being said, please take care. Be safe. As always, keep nerding on. And we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.